students reflecting, self-reflection on studies, it's easy to say we believe that students should reflect on their studies. When you're talking about that, practically, what does that look like? And what actual stuff do you feel that they should be reflecting on? Are you talking about reflecting on the accounting subject itself?
Yeah. So I guess there's reflection in different contexts and I guess different parts of the learning process. So, I mean, I'm just going to use math as an example.
Good example. Everyone struggles with that.
So I think a reflection is needed when you study a topic for the first time. I guess one can delve deeper into practical tools, but going back to the Socratic questioning, one of the good ways to reflect is to ask questions. So, for example, if I'm studying CVP, some reflection question will be, what is CVP about? Why is it important for decision making, etc.? When would I use it? And how do I go about doing it? Right. So, like you mentioned earlier, like you knew how to do the formulas, but discussion was like, how do you know that in this specific way I'm not given a formula that CVP would apply if I didn't study what I went in house? So I think reflection definitely helps to really understand the heart of the topic, because I mean every subject I think has a big picture. Math's big picture is decision making and control. So like, how do the questions align with that big picture of math? So that would be, let's call it studying a new topic for the first time. And then of course there's the reflection, which I hated as a student, but it's absolutely vital. Like after you've written a test and your results were putrid, you cannot just
wow, like, yeah.
I mean, you certainly cannot just, you got 30%, in my case, 27%. You cannot just move on to the next one without reflecting on that. Yeah. It's like having, always saying class, it's like having a bad relationship. You got to reflect on why the last one didn't work, right?
Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in the next one. It's the same thing.
So then it's reflecting again about like, why did I go wrong? What was assessed? Did I not understand this topic? Was it exam technique? And then so that whole process of reflection allows you to delve deeper into the specific that may be needed to get better the next time. And I always say like, you're never going to be an expert at reflection, but it has to be something that you value as part of your life. So to like put it as it's a studying thing, like no, you got to make it a life experience. Reflect on. After this conversation, I might reflect like, did it go well? Is Yvonne gonna like what I said? You know?
Yeah, but I didn't call you doctor, so that's positive, right?
I mean, it's a life. When it becomes a life thing, it's so easy to do it when it's specifically focused on studying. And I think with Psycho moving to this whole pervasive values and attitudes, that's not something we can just leave for studying. Like we've got to make that as part of.
Not coming out of a textbook, right?
Yeah, we've got to make it part of who we are. And when it's part of who we are, it's easier to apply it for studying. But if we're just going to say, I'm just doing this to study because I want to pass, then it's not really an acumen. It's not really part of who you are. Yeah.
No, and I think people hear us say this as lecturers and they kind of go, oh, that's nice to have. And I get that. But a lot of what we're saying may be nice to have when you're still passing your exams. So let's say you're in first or second year and you're like, oh, I'm fine, I'm good. A little self-reflection necessary. But this stuff starts impacting whether or not you pass or fail your exams in later years, especially in PGDA, where the shift in skill requirements and underlying thinking is so vast that it's not as simple as going into class, hear the material, okay, I remember it, I'm going to go pass the question on it. There's a lot of stuff going on in your brain. It takes a lot of time to process. Sometimes you've got to hear it more than once, etc., which is very different for us. When we talk about stuff like this, it's valuable for your life. It's valuable for all the rest of this. But the reality is it does impact the results of your exams. It does impact the way you study, because part of those reflection questions is, do I need to change what I'm doing? And if everything's working and you're passing exams, then obviously your answer at the moment is, no, I'm good, leave me alone. Like I've got stuff to do. I need to go and study for tax. But when things start going downhill, and they do have a tendency to go downhill very quickly when you hit PGDA, generally the first week where you realize I'm screwed, I'm behind already. Then the importance of self-reflection is, do I need to change? And for us, change is not great. Change is very weird. Change is odd. And for my students, I kind of push or recommend a lot of thought processes around what you need to change. And some of them is quite significant, but it's very easy to say, I don't have the time to change now. I don't have the time to change that because I'm studying CTA and the self-reflection thing. So one of the things in terms of self-reflections that I emphasize is reflecting on what you're avoiding. Where's your resistance? What are you avoiding? As human beings, we have a tendency to resist for different reasons. And that may be resistance because it's unhealthy for you. and it's not something that should be part of who you are, your values, or whatever. But we also tend to resist things that are new, resist things that make us feel uncomfortable, resist things we don't like. And when we're studying, that's very dangerous. And we very seldom actively ask the question, what are we avoiding? What are we not doing? So for very many students, I'm sure you have the same problem, is getting them to focus on studying financial management. If they struggle with financial management, is quite difficult. They have a tendency to gravitate back towards what they know and what they're comfortable in. You have to, you got to face it, face your fears. You got to look at the stuff and whatever. So indirectly or unconsciously, I find students have a tendency to avoid subjects and topics that they don't like. They avoid questions because it makes them feel like, I don't know what I'm doing. And they avoid asking for help from their lecturers because it makes them feel stupid, and they don't want lecturers to know that they don't know what they're doing. So self-reflection on topics is one thing, but I think one of the very big things that I want students to self-reflect on is, what do you avoid? What do you avoid? If you're resisting something, you need to ask why. There may be a really good reason for it, and maybe perfectly because it's like it's super dangerous. Stay away. Cool, that's great. You don't lose anything by asking the question. And people are starting with PGA stuff now, and probably a lot of them are blinking in the headlights and going, "Oh crap, what have I done? what am I like? This may have been a bad idea." Like, wow. Be aware of the fact that you're likely to avoid stuff that stresses you out. Be very aware of that, because resistance happens subconsciously. It doesn't send you a memo. Your brain doesn't send you a memo and says, hey, we're going to avoid this for the next 3 weeks because we don't like it. It just quietly happens. Distraction, procrastination, moving on. And then the next thing you know, you're like, oh man, I really meant to do questions this week. Didn't do any. I don't know why I didn't do questions this week, because your brain is taking you on a trip, outside the window. So a couple of things I want to emphasize. One, self-reflection needs to be something that you get into the habit of doing while you're still passing your exams. True. When things are going well, start the habit of self-reflection, because you don't want to change habits when things are going bad. You already want like good thought process to be in place. Self-reflection includes the subject matter itself. Why am I doing this? Why is this important? So we all hated deferred tax. So why are we doing it? Like, why is it there? Why does it exist? Where does this come from? I don't know why I always pick on deferred tax. I don't know.
I hate it. I hate it as well.
I don't know why I always pick on it, but I do. I need to pick another standard. So it's both subject related, but it's also the way that you think, your habits, who you are, the stuff that you struggle with. Self-reflection is about, what am I doing? What am I not doing? What do I need to change? And how do I make those changes? For those of you who are starting your CTA or any academic year, I really would recommend perhaps writing down a little piece of paper, self-reflection, subject and non-subject. For the year. Get into a habit of like, what would I do in terms of what questions should I ask? Should I get into the habit of asking after I've attended a lecture? And then what questions should I get into a habit of asking myself once a week? What am I avoiding? What are my habits? What did I do that I said I was going to do? Did I fail my commitments? I said I was going to do stuff that I didn't do. What did I avoid? What did I not avoid? And I think if you put these together and you start learning about things that you are great at, not great at, it means you can go to your lecturer and go, I thought about this. And in reality, I have no idea where deferred tax comes from. Like, why am I doing? Your lecturer will be really happy to have that discussion, because your lecturer, whoever's teaching you deferred tax, is probably pretty passionate about it. Not so much. But they'll probably be really happy to have the discussion with you of like where it comes from, what it is, why. And you've got to understand that us as lecturers, man, we know you're stupid. Dude, there's students who are like, oh, but Yvonne, I don't want to ask my lecturer this because he's going to think I'm stupid. Don't you worry. He knows. That's why he's there. That's why he's there. He's not under the impression that you know what's going on. I talk to students, but I haven't asked my lecturer because I don't want them to think I'm not studying. It's okay. He knows that the stuff is going to take you 3 years to process, and he probably didn't know what was going on when he was studying it either, because I don't know. So when you go to your lecturers, they're not expecting you to have the answers. I always say to my students, it's kind of like saying, I'm not going to jump in the pool until I know how to swim. It doesn't work that way. You want to learn to swim, you got to get in the pool, and you're going to swallow a little water, you're going to cough a little bit, you're going to splutter, but the idea is jump in the shallow end. Don't wait until you're pushed in the deep end in your exam. So,
that's a good analogy.
I think I would love to continue the discussion of self-reflection and practical stuff that you feel students would benefit from right up to second board exam, especially because of the involvement that you have with those courses. I think will add a huge amount of value for students. So yeah, I would really look forward to having more discussions like this.
Yeah, it would be great.
And yeah, thank you again. Thank you for your time.
Absolute pleasure.